listening to the Questionnaire.
Say that again.
You're listening to the Questionnaires.
I've just started.
Right here, for your ears, for your eyes.
The Questionnaire.
Get your comic on.
Poke it out, poke it out, poke it out, poke it out.
Steve Rogers. It's been a long time. Well, firstly, I ain't Steve Rogers. Secondly, it's not been a long time, or at least I hope not. Like, I mean, it should have been fairly, like, stuff dropping, and I don't even know, like, let me see what dropped before this. Elena, and then there was one after that, right? I think, which Elena was a pleasure, man. Like, I've never done a show so early. Look, we typically do not do things in the morning here, but she was in Italy, so that had to be done. And then I'm forgetting some other people because I can honestly only tell you the episodes that are dropped right now, not the ones that I need to edit. And I know there are ones that I need to edit, but we're not going to get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to get into, is the Questionnaire. And we're going to try and keep this one PG, because I swear, nothing. Yeah, and I don't even know, like there's part of me that's like, well, how PG is Effin Birds? Aaron Reynolds, what's up?
How's it going? I can work clean. I do a show at Comic-Cons called Bootleg Safari where I never say any bad words, except for the one time we did the show as Bootleg Safari After Dark in Minnesota last year, and that was a really great time.
It's an interesting thing to try and keep it PG. I don't know, but I get it. But, whatever. We're not getting into that. What we're going to get into is a lot of different things, right? Like, but you said something in the pre-show, which y'all can go check out over the Patreon before and after the quest, man. I'm actually kind of consistently getting them out now, as well as I'm trying to get out a lot of the past ones that I still have sitting. It's a lot of editing, whatever. So they're coming. But you said a lonely Sasquatch that finds a cell phone in the woods.
Oh yeah, so here this is a story about how my brain works, because I got a really great email from my publisher. That's something that I have been pitching for like 5 or 6 years at this point. They finally want to do it, and all they want from me right now is 4 more pages of the script and 2 pages of art, so they can just make sure that it's where they think they want it to go. And so that's great. I got to do 4 pages of script, and then they can give me money, which is like the best part of this whole process. And instead of doing those 4 pages of script, I thought about a Sasquatch who finds the cell phone of a dead hiker in the woods and becomes obsessed with consumerism. And it's like this incredibly sad story of a Sasquatch that has to get a job and all these things, and like ends up moving to the city. And the really hard part is I outlined it, and now I'm mostly done the script, and I'm supposed to be doing 4 pages of Space Werewolf, and instead I'm going to finish this whole Sasquatch story first, because my brain just does that. And I have to accept that of my brain. I have to let my brain sometimes do what it wants to do, because then good stuff comes out. Like, I like the Sasquatch story a lot. I kind of think it's the best thing I've ever written. It's me grappling with my feelings about social media and consumerism and like all that kind of stuff, and through the lens of big hairy monster trying to put on human clothes and pretend he's a guy named Jeff.
Do you have any idea when that's going to be available, out of curiosity?
None at all, because I haven't even pitched it yet. That's the thing, is I'm not supposed to be doing something else. I'm supposed to be doing the thing that they said yes to. So I'm going to have to also send them this pitch.
Did you just get yourself in trouble?
I just had to get it all written down. I just had to get it out. I had to get it out of my body.
You're not going to get in trouble for the fact that you've been not doing the thing you were supposed to, right?
Well, here's the thing. This is one of the things that I like about. I do have a schedule for my daily comic, but I'm so far ahead on it that I can't screw that up, which is great. I'm about a year. If I were to die today, my comic would run for a year on social media without me doing anything. And that has to do with requirements of publishing for my calendars and all that kind of stuff. But the great thing about where I am with these other projects is they don't really have a deadline. They have a deadline, like if I don't hand pieces in, I don't get paid. And so if I want to go off and do something else for a while, it just means I don't get paid for this other thing. And that's, you know, I mean, I should be smart and do the things that have the paycheck attached to them. You know, that's how I eat and afford this house. So, you know, I should do that. But sometimes you just have a Sasquatch story that needs to come out.
Well, and I think in that, as far as somebody who's artistic, if you don't go after that at points, then you never know what you might lose in that moment.
Also true. Yep.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, and I forget. I've forgotten more things than I've written down, you know. So like I do spend a lot, like I literally have a notepad beside us right now because something's gonna come up in our conversation and I'm gonna need to write it down. So I'm already prepared.
I probably should do that, but I feel that honestly, if I had a notebook during these conversations, the conversations wouldn't go as well because I would be distracted by trying to take notes for more than anything, probably like, oh, well, at this minute mark, it needs to be a TikTok because that was freaking hilarious. And I don't,
Yeah.
it would, and then I would never get the time to edit it anyways because if I did that, then the actual wouldn't, whatever, that's a whole nother point, right?
Well, that's why you have a producer who's separate from the interviewer. Because when I was producing podcasts, I was sitting there with the notebook marking like, oh, this is good. We're going to use this for this. Go back to
you
this
want to
part
wait?
later.
Are you wanting to be the producer over here, Aaron? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I can be. You need me to, like, I quit that job, so I got a little bit of time available.
I can only imagine what having an actual producer for this show would do. That'd be freaking fat. That'd be an effing bird, man. I don't know, like
makes a difference. Having a good producer makes a difference. And I think the best part was when I was doing that job, my actual primary job was to set this place up so that they could do stuff by themselves. And so I was hiring other producers. So I was really there to like produce pilots, look at pitches, and correct things that were going wrong. It was the greatest job in the world. It was great.
never mind. You said hire, man. I ain't. Yeah. I would need this show to be making enough to at least hire you to be able to hire you to produce the show, if that makes sense.
So here's a job I almost took. You're going to enjoy this. There is a legendary Canadian political party called the Rhinoceros Party that are a satirical party. But every once in a while, they get enough votes to show up on the ballot or to deserve a place at a debate. One of the best Rhinoceros Party stories is the time that Tickles the Clown was in a debate against Pierre Elliott Trudeau because they had just enough to qualify as a real party. So Tickles the Clown got to be up there on the debate stage. But like their whole thing is to disrupt and mock the process. And a long time ago in an interview, somebody said, "What's your dream job?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to run comms for the Rhinoceros Party during a federal election." And so I got asked. I think it hit their Google alerts, and I got asked if I want to do that job. And I had to think long and hard about it because I really do. And the whole thing, I wrote a press release about how they hired me to do fundraising to raise enough money to pay my own salary, and then if any money was left over to run a federal election campaign. That was the press release that I wrote for them because it was going to be, yeah. But anyways, I was like, man, our upcoming election in Canada is kind of depressing and kind of serious, and I don't know that I can make fun of it. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do that. But I wanted to. Came up with some good slogans. Rhinoceros Party, horny for jobs. That was a pretty good slogan. I liked that one, but could have sold some merch with that on it.
Oh yeah, that would have sold very well. Yeah.
Right? Like people not in Canada would have bought that, and I mean that's all you can ask. Raising funds from foreigners, oh, that's great.
Yeah, I can imagine if you could get that shirt online and get like even just if you could put it on the Amazon and just put an ad behind it, you would.
Oh yeah,
you would sell a lot of them just based on what it is. It wouldn't even.
Yep. Wouldn't even have to be related. Actually, it would probably get us in some trouble because they are actually a recognized party, and so it would probably get into some real tricky fundraising things. And that's I don't know. You had me fill out a questionnaire and it asked what my least favorite thing in the world was, and it's fucking paperwork. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that. My least favorite thing in the world is paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not much of a fan of it either, man. I mean, I don't get. I know there are people that are, and if that's yeah, like I could write a
Fix your boat. That's
story.
great.
Yeah, but I could write a story. But if you're telling me to like, no, I don't like paperwork. That's yeah,
No.
it's
Think about what the taxes are like for a bird cartoon. They're horrible. You don't want to conceive of what the taxes are like for a bird cartoon. They're just stupid
what?
and
Wait,
weird and complicated.
a Burton cartoon.
No, bird cartoon.
Oh, a
My
bird
my comic.
cartoon.
Yeah.
I thought you said Burton, and I was like, how do we? Wait, what? And you threw me off there for a minute because my brain was like, Tim Burton does claymation. But the taxes for a bird car, yeah, I can only imagine, man. It's funny that you get into that. And I don't think people understand how much when you're running something on your own like that, you have to deal with all that. I think when we got
Oh,
into it with Michael Oeming, I mean, he had a whole nother level of stuff to deal with, especially with Powers becoming a TV show and all of that. I mean, you guys,
right.
so it's just paperwork and paperwork, and I don't think people ever understand how much that is a factor when you're an independent creator, uh, because it has to be, or you're gonna have a problem. Because
Right.
you know,
Well,
but it's
the
also
the
the
idea that like Revenue Canada at one point thought I was an employee of Penguin Random House, and they were trying to tax me as an employee of Penguin Random House and like payroll taxes and unemployment insurance and all that kind of stuff. And it's like it's very hard to explain to them. Like they send me paychecks, like they send me checks sometimes, but they're not paychecks, they're royalty checks for a work they've licensed from me. And like it's funny because you're talking to them and it's like, have you never talked to a person who's written a book before? Like that's what this is. Like what's the comparable? Because I believe I could be doing it wrong, so I would love to know what the right thing is, but I know it's not this. Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand what the concept of royalties would be so difficult. I mean, there's so many. It's just because that's entertainment. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that's just how it is. Like Samuel L. Jackson gets checks from I don't know how many places. He ain't employees in none of them. You know what I mean? I think
Right.
that would probably be
Right.
the simple way to relay it. It's like how like Hollywood actors get paid by companies. Yeah, yeah. They're not their actual employees, right? They just have like this thing where they're doing that and that's it. And then they end up getting royalties off the stuff they did because of the back deals and keep getting checks for Fast and Furious 1 when you're on Fast and Furious 28,652.
The thing that I want most in my life is a strong enough backlist of books that I get a bunch of small checks that together add up to one pretty good check, every 6 months or so. That's what I would really like. So, working towards it.
Do you think like that's interesting to think that because obviously with it being books like that it's handled a bit differently than like a traditional comic book. Because until typically comic books when they have a run even with graphic novels. There's not a lot of graphic novels that constantly stay in print.
Well, that's it. Yeah. My first book is on its 9th printing. We're about to hit the 5th anniversary, and we sell about the same number of copies every week. It's never been a massive seller. It's always been a consistent seller. And the fact that every 6 months I continue to get a check of about the same size from it is kind of mind blowing because I did all that work 7 years ago. It's kind of like it makes me lazy a little bit.
Well, that's just like when you were talking to Fabian. I know he said like he knew script writers and they would sell a script every 5 or 10 or whatever years,
Yeah.
and based on the residuals, but that's a weird gambit too. You know what I mean? Because you
Yeah.
can sell this like I can't for you doing that. There's probably let's say low 100 people who released a book, and regardless of how well it sold, the numbers dropped off fairly consistently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, and a part of it is that I keep myself out in the public eye. I do a lot of appearances. I do a lot of Comic Cons because they'll have me, and they're fun, and they can be lucrative. Like they are worth doing, and because I do that, I keep selling books. And I think that's part of it. Like, I think that the dream of you write a book and you give it to your publisher, and then they do all this work and then it sells lots of copies. Like, a writer these days has got to do a lot of work to keep that thing alive. You know, it's like it's a lot of that work has been put onto the writer.
It's funny too, and this is something that's been brought up in I don't know how many different past quests, if I'm going to be real honest, but the fact that essentially the introduction of social media made it to where the people that were making the art for the company suddenly had to become the promoters to a certain degree. I mean, if you think about this, let's go way back because I'm old, right? If you think about really before, like everything, like in the days of MySpace, right? When it was just kicking off, you know, celebrities weren't really on that much, like pitching their movies and that. You went and watched them on whatever late night show or whatever, and that's how you seen the upcoming movies they were talking about. Now they have to be a constant social media presence as well as everything else entertainment wise. It's
Well, I was
complete flux.
I was stunned by reading about what the some of the press strategy was for the movie, the tennis movie Challengers that just came out. A lot of their strategy was send Zendaya to important tennis matches. Like, that was the strategy, because they would get a ton of press from her being there, right? There would be photographs, and then of course it would lead to discussion of the upcoming film that she was in that was tennis related. And like, that was there. It wasn't buying a Super Bowl ad. It was sending her to tennis matches.
Hmm.
And like, I thought that was fascinating, but also like, man, that puts a lot of the work on her. You know, like, that puts a lot of the work for the success or failure of this film on one person. You know, out of the 1,000 people who worked on that movie. And I mean, she's certainly the most famous person who worked on that movie, but still, like that's a lot.
Do you think it would have been that way, say, in the late 80s, early 90s? You think any strategy like that ever would have been thought of? Or you think they would have definitely went a different route?
I don't think they could have done that because they didn't have the kind of news cycle that we have now. Like, the celebrity news cycle is so fast. You know, stuff happens and then it's gone. Whereas like in the 80s and 90s, you know, those magazines came out weekly at most, and many of them were monthly. So that news cycle, for the hype cycle for a movie like Challengers, you would have to start it a year, 6 months in advance, right? And you'd have to reach your peak 2 months before the movie came out, so that the magazine that's on the newsstands just before the movie comes out is the one that's talking about it. And so it was a much slower process. Like, I look at I do calendars every year, and they are an incredibly slow process compared to everything else. My deadline for all of 2026's cartoons for my Page a Day calendar is the start of June of this year. So you know, 18 months before the year itself, of the publication of the calendar. And so it makes sense, like, because we have to get it through editorial, and then we have to print it, and then we have to get it to stores really by fall of 2025, right? And printing, those printing lines for calendars, you can't run them for 3 months and then shut them down. What you really have to do is have stuff coming through them all year round. And so my slot is that my stuff is going to go to print, you know, pretty early, so I deliver pretty early. That process being so like long compared to everything else I do, because everything else I've done has been in the social media age. The fact that I'm dealing with one really old school process is kind of refreshing. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of delightful. Like, it's like, yeah, man, nobody's going to see this for a year and a half. You shouldn't even talk about it. You know, like, don't spoil jokes that people are going to read in a year and a half or 2 years.
That's funny to think a little bit too, that you're sitting on jokes and you're like, and you're just like, yeah, those exist. I may be dead when they come out. I don't know.
Well, I made a really good joke today, and I was like, oh, I want to merchandise this. I want to sell this on mugs, like, right now. And I was like, yeah, but this comes out in 14, 15 months. What do I like? What should I do it now? Maybe I should just move it up to now. I'm gonna do it because it's gonna be good. Or
I
maybe
mean,
I'll hold
so
it for like. Oh, go ahead.
what do you do in cases like that where you think you've come up with something and it's like, oh, this'll, but you know you're writing it for that, and it's supposed to have that long, like as far as long of a hold. Like, have there
Yeah.
been times where you're like, ah, no, we're dropping it and we're doing this now?
Sometimes I drop things right away because they feel of the moment. You know, because I mean, the comics I write are very vibesy, right? They're emotions more than anything else. And when you can sort of take the temperature of social media and feel it going one way or another, sometimes it helps to have a really deep bench of comics that are already done where you can just go and say, oh, I know that was going to run 6 months from now, but that's actually going to run today. And because I'm not dealing with a syndicate or anything like that, because Effin Birds can't really go in a newspaper. You know what I mean? Like it's got a bunch of curse
No,
words in it.
re-
It's like,
are
you
you
know,
sure, Aaron? You don't think you could get in like New York Times or something? Come on, man. It'd be.
I almost had a deal to do some comics for AT&T that were about making jokes about like cell phone ownership that were one panel New Yorker style comics, and I think everything I pitched them was just a little bit too weird for them, but they were much cleaner than Effin Birds. And yeah, like I tried for a while to get into alt weeklies and stuff like that, but the thing is, all the alt weeklies are dead, and the ones that are still around don't have any money. And so I actually gave the comic away to a bunch of alt weeklies, and the one that ran the longest had to cut it because they had put there was an article about sex in Albuquerque, and on the cover of the Albuquerque Alibi they put a picture of a butt plug, and it scandalized all of Albuquerque. And then the owners of the Albuquerque Alibi went over everything in the paper with a fine-tooth comb and were like, okay, this has to go, this has to go, this has to go, and what's this rude birds cartoon that has to go. I was like, they were like, yeah, we're canceling your cartoon. I was like, well, I wasn't making you pay for it anyway, so I don't really care.
Well,
Yeah,
so
that's my life. I got a weird life.
it's interesting, man. So yeah, all right. Where do you go after you bring that up, man? But hey, honestly, I do think it's interesting what you bring up as far as my brain always goes to the next place there, and it's a problem. But it helps with the show. But I digress back to my point. Um, do you think as far as you're right, man? You know, because we had Brent Giuliano, who does Dust Bunny Mafia, which is strips as well. And it seems like the spots you would typically see those. You know what I mean? They are becoming non-existent.
Yep.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
so which has definitely led to people taking it to the internet. What do you think that's done to that particular medium? Because I think when it's so short form like that, and it's in comic form, I think it takes a different place because I think it's one of those forms of entertainment. In my opinion, anyways, will have a harder time translating over into digital. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah.
Especially when people are more likely to go on TikTok for that quick dopamine than they are to read a short funny thing. I recommend reading the short funny thing personally, or the long funny thing, or whatever thing. Just or anything. It's the important part of that whole sentence is read. Um, but what do you
No,
think of the
I
effects of
believe it. I think that the thing about the internet, and I think a thing to acknowledge is that the internet in the last couple of years has also once again changed. Social media has changed. The actual net itself has changed. The way the finances work on the net have changed. And so 5 years ago was a really great time to try to create something on the internet because it was relatively easy to break through the noise if you did something good. You know, if you did something good, you had a lot of opportunities to have your moment in the spotlight. And then if you could take advantage of it, you could make something. And now, like we're seeing, one of my favorite conversations that's ongoing over on the platform Threads is how terrible the Threads algorithm is, that it's constantly showing 3-day-old posts that are about a thing in a specific moment, you know, and but only those posts over and over again. And like, I've seen that post from Anil Dash about how he's so frustrated with his timeline only showing him 4-day-old posts. I've been seeing it for 6 days straight now. It's at the top of my timeline every day. And when you're dealing with that, it's a lot harder to break through, because we're sort of like concentrating. The algorithm is concentrating on the thing it thinks you're going to click on, which is like the whole point, right? Like, they want to give you the thing that they think you want. So here's the thing you're going to click on, but then it leads to this bizarre circle of you're only clicking on this thing, so that's the only thing you're going to get. And then like it's really tough. It's really tough. Like, I understand that like the TikTok algorithm was great for a long time for discovery, and now it doesn't seem to be so much so anymore. But all the other platforms, in their attempt to chase being the same as TikTok for discovery, have made their platforms much, much worse. I have 1 million followers across platforms, and some weeks I get at most 70,000 people to look at things. And that's not a great number, you know, like I would rather have a quarter of my audience see what I do, or half my audience see what I do. But, you know, I'm kind of lucky to get 1/10 of it.
Do you think that has to do, like, what do you think the main cause of that is? Do you think it's the algorithm? Do you think the fact that perhaps it's the whole aspect of there's so much content out there that if everyone was shown everything that they liked, because let's face it, a lot of people click like on things and just never think about it again.
Yeah.
That it would get to the point where social media became overwhelming to the human brain, to where they were willing to walk away from it.
Yeah, I believe that's probably true. But I think one of the big problems is, as we move algorithmically, you know, to what shows in your timeline rather than chronologically or something else. Because I mean, the chronological timeline was great because I could look at a bunch of data that said when my audience was active, and I could say, okay, well, most of them are going to be around at 3 o'clock, so I'm going to post at 3 o'clock. Now my 3 o'clock post, some of them are going to see it at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Some people are going to see it at 8 o'clock tonight. Some people are going to see it 3 days from now. And it means nothing gets any traction the way that it used to when everybody was there at 3 o'clock and could click on it and say they liked it. But I mean, you know, woe is me, they changed the internet. I think part of the problem too is that as they make it more algorithmically driven, the people who are bad actors, the people who are there to just get some clicks because they've monetized their clicks, you know, those sites that are 90% garbage ad, you know, every time you land on one of those sites, they got 3 or 4 cents at least. And so their whole thing is about getting more. And do you know 404 Media? Do you know that website?
No.
They're a bunch of people who left Motherboard and started their own like tech journalism site. It's quite good, but they have an excellent deep dive into what they call the zombie web, and it's compromised Facebook accounts that are posting. Oh, I hate this. I don't know if you can see what's happening here. Every time I make a hand gesture, my computer is like, oh, you made a thumbs up. That means you want to give a thumbs up emoji. You put up 2 fingers. Therefore, we're going to show a bunch of party balloons or lasers. It's the worst. Anyways, whenever I count anything in a conversation in a Zoom call, now this happens to me. It's wonderful. And it just derails my entire train of thought. Okay, the zombie internet. Compromised Facebook accounts that are pumping out repetitive AI-generated images, and then all the comments on them are also bot activity. And so it's like this whole thing where 2 different spammers are trying to make it a few cents here and there by generating engagement spam and then spamming it. Like there's this guy over here who's making the site, the page that he's getting a few bucks from Facebook for every interaction. Here's the guy over here who's like making fake clicks to the advertiser, and they have somehow gotten into this cycle where one will post this bizarre picture of Jesus as a shrimp, and then the other will have 10,000 bots comment amen on it. And like it's wild, but it's destroying the internet because that is using up so many computational cycles. That's feeding into the algorithm because now that is data for the algorithm to use, and so all this garbage it's rendering the internet unusable.
It's funny to think that while so many of us like to play with AI, we've already programmed, robots ostensibly, but they're just ones and zeros, to do so many things that are terrible for us as a society because they do start to dim so many things and just show you something that's greed and nothing more. There's no basis of anything else. And look, there's plenty. I would hate to think how many bots there are for Amazon, to be real honest. I swear, one day I'm gonna get this podcast just kicked off of Amazon. Like they're gonna be like, how many times he's down talked that company? I'm like, look, I worked at that company, so I don't frankly care. I just want to point that out, and y'all are, it's not a good company.
As a person who testified in front of the New York Attorney General antitrust investigation into Amazon, like I'm with you there. I sell a lot of books on Amazon, but they've also treated me like one more disposable thing that they can make a few bucks off of. And the worst was when they were, and this is the thing, there's human beings involved in this process. This is not bot activity. This is somebody downloads a whole bunch of my comics from my Twitter or my Tumblr or whatever else, and then they go to the Kindle on demand publishing platform and they make a really crappy version of my calendar. And then they call it official Effin Birds 2023 calendar. And because it's a Kindle print on demand product, it's ranked higher in the search results than my real calendars from Andrews McMeel. And then here's the thing. I have a registered trademark for Effin Birds in the United States, specifically in the United States, so that to stop problems like this. And so I'm in Amazon's brand registry. And that means that they're not supposed to let anything show up on Amazon.com that includes the words Effin Birds, unless it's something from a previously whitelisted publisher. So Penguin Random House can do it, Andrews McMeel can do it, the company that has my magnets license can do it, and that's it. They, every year, 3 years in a row, they suspended my protections in November and let all these spam calendars through. And then they would say, oh, yeah, you're right. Those are all illegal and we'll remove them. And they removed them in January. And the reason they were suspending my protections is that they were saying there were too many unresolved cases. Like I had marked too many things as trademark infringement that they hadn't yet actioned. But they hadn't actioned them because they hadn't bothered to action them. They were letting them age so that they could say, oh, well, now there's 5 unresolved cases on your account. I guess we're going to suspend brand registry for you. And so for 3 years in a row, they stole a bunch of money from me. They wrecked my reputation for calendars because the quality of those things, and there's stuff downloaded from my Twitter. It's all JPEG artifact, like garbage. And people were mad. People were mad at me. They're not mad at Amazon. They're mad at me. And like that sucks. That sucks as a small creator. Like it sucks. And it sucks for people who don't have the protections of like somebody who didn't have the $5,000 or whatever it takes to get a registered trademark done right. Like I know so many people who just have to deal with the fact that Amazon's selling fake calendars of their work every year and won't stop until January, at which point they'll say, oh, yeah, you were right. We'll take those away.
And they've literally 3 years in a row done this in November.
Yep. And then I testified in front of that antitrust thing, and guess what? They stopped doing it. That's really weird. Oh, what a coincidence. What a crazy coincidence.
Oh, my God. That's... I mean, it just shows,
I saw.
unfortunately, how much.
I saw.
Hmm?
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, it shows, unfortunately, how much we've let greed run rampant.
Yeah. Oh, so there's a really great article in, I think it's in the Washington Post, which is extra funny because it doesn't Jeff Bezos open that paper, but it's about how Amazon executives cracked down on piracy and unauthorized stuff on Amazon.com, and then they missed their growth targets for the year, so they didn't get their bonuses, and so the next year they cracked down a lot less hard.
Uh,
You monetize the wrong thing, and that's what you get. Like.
it's just an odd thing if you think about it, because I mean, how many people doing things that are on a piracy level and using Amazon do you think are just trying to be okay monetarily?
Oh yeah, like that's part of it too, right? Like it sucks that there's somebody who like is doing this to make 30 or 40 bucks, because the thing is they don't make a lot of money on those things. Yeah, that part sucks. It really sucks for the 10,000 like crummy t-shirt platforms that are out there, because that's a constant source of piracy. And like those guys, one time, because I got in a fairly public fight with one of those t-shirt platforms, an ex-employee of theirs sent me a whole trove of internal emails from the company where they discussed how they would actually hire people on Fiverr to go on social media and find the things that people wanted shirts of and then create knockoff versions of it. But then the Fiverr people were submitting them to the website and selling them on the website. So even though the t-shirt platform is making the lion's share of the money, it's this person over here who's infringing the copyright. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what the Digital Millennium Copyright Act is there to, shield YouTube from somebody who uploads an episode of Star Trek. YouTube can't get sued by Paramount for the cost of that episode of Star Trek. It's just as long as they get in there and turn it off in a reasonable amount of time, it's, yeah. So yeah, but to find out that those guys were actually actively going out and hiring people to do it, like that sucked. And the thing is, they're hiring on Fiverr, and so those are people who are working for no money at all. It's brutal. It's really, really brutal.
This brain is making just in all sincerity, it's because it's one of those situations I'm fully aware of as far as just the economic and just how it works, but that's a new layer, more than anything, that I'd never heard or even thought of, as far as how these corporations are. That's some man. Look, that's almost a supervillain level scheme right there.
Yep.
Let me be real. Like that's what I think. They're over there thinking like Doctor Doom about how to just become the richest person in the room. You know what I mean? And I take that back. Doom is not that much of an a-hole. All right.
It really is like it's depressing, but I think it's the same as like the NFT gold rush, where people were all trying to mint NFTs of my work. It's just some people in tech who see a way to make a bunch of money off of someone who's a little more gullible, who's going to make a lot less money as part of it, or maybe even no money as part of it, but they're still going to make money for the guy up there. And like, that's kind of it.
We talk about something else, Aaron.
Yeah, let's talk about something else.
Like this is getting depressing. It really is, man.
Yeah, sorry.
She's a freaking Pete. You and your Effin Birds. That's
Me.
that's.
See, I have this great outlet for all of my negative emotions, and it's a daily comic strip where I get to put all of my angst out into the world without people thinking I'm a maniac or a serial killer. It's kind of great.
Why can't you stand Independence Day?
The movie Independence Day?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's because I had to see it so many times that year. because everyone I knew loved that movie. And I saw it in theaters opening night, and I was like, this isn't for me. That's fine. But then some people who missed it wanted to go back, and it was that was our ritual, was going to the movies. And then it came out on video, and we watched it again. And then they had a thing at the Ontario Science Center where they had a screening of it, and then they had a scientist go through all the things that were implausible in the movie, which I actually really enjoyed. I enjoyed that a lot. But uh, I saw it too many times, and not on purpose, and I just don't want to see it ever again.
Okay, so it's not that it's just like you didn't enjoy it as a film. It's just you were burnt out on it.
Oh yeah. Well, I think the thing is, like, I think I said this in answer to a different question in your questionnaire. I don't spend a lot of time on things that I don't like. If I don't like something, it's not that it's bad, it's that it's not for me. And it's for somebody else, and I am happy just to let it be for that other person. I mean, I have 2 kids who are super into Zack Snyder movies, and that's great for them. They made me watch the long cut of Justice League. I watched it because they asked me to. I won't watch it again. I don't need to see any of those other movies. It's fine. Like, there are some things I like about his movies. I would love for him to go make something original and weird. Turns out Rebel Moon wasn't it, but like I want to see something interesting from him. It's just that he hasn't made the thing that I'm going to enjoy yet. It's fine.
Man, firstly, I enjoyed the Snyder Cut of JLA, I will say. I only watched it once. Oh my god, that thing is long. Oh my god, it's so long.
It's really long. It was
Oh my
really
god.
long.
Oh my god, it's so long. I think it took me 3 or 4 days to watch the whole thing. It's so long, but it was good. You know what I think? I think at least it's the best live action representation that I think has ever been done in the Justice League. Um, I just, I think more than anything, the thing that annoys me about that particular representation is why did the dude that plays the nicest guy in the DC universe have to be a real life a-hole? But we're not going to get in any more of that. Right. Right. We're not. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I've heard some
just
stories.
really like, like if you're gonna play Spider-Man or the Flash, they should have to like give you like a real vibe check. You know what I mean? Like you need
Right.
to play one of those 2 characters. You got to have a real life vibe check. And if you can't pass that level of vibe check, and in the case of those 2 characters, it's gonna be a pretty high one. Um, you don't get play that character. It's just the way that is. You know, it's just my opinion. But I am glad to hear that I'm not the only one that watched the first part of Rebel Moon. And the only thing I thought was, hey, the robot was interesting. Why did it have antlers? I want to see more of that. Can we get rid of the rest of this crap? I've seen this movie 1,000 times.
And I think that the thing was, like, the idea that he wanted to make a Star Wars, and apparently this was originally pitched as a Star Wars, and they didn't pick it up. And he wanted to make a Star Wars, and he wanted to do a Star Wars the way George Lucas did it, by adapting a Kurosawa film into space. You know, those are good ideas. I just didn't. I don't know, didn't do it for me, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure it did it for somebody.
Oh well, I mean no, because I've seen a lot of very positive things about it. You know what I mean? And for those that enjoyed it, that's awesome. You enjoyed it. But I definitely I don't hear that opinion very often, man. It's one of those things like me and my wife watched it. It was like, can I just get a movie about the robot? That's literally pretty much all I thought. You know what I mean? But again, I think it's good that you should just focus on the things that you enjoy. Why do you think it is so easy on the internet for people to not do that?
You know what? I think that people crave conflict, or some people crave conflict, and I think that it's just one more way to find a conflict. It's like there's some websites that I've actively pruned their existence from my life by preemptively. They didn't do anything to me, but I've blocked their social media accounts so that I never have to see somebody retweeting them, because they are bad faith, taking something out of an interview that somebody did somewhere else and trying to turn it into a controversy. You know what I mean? Like trying to turn it into a
Oh,
fight between 2
oh,
people.
I do, because look, if you go look at Fabian's interview, he literally set up moments you could do that with. Like he was just he was just screwing around, not caring at all, being like, here, I'm going to give you this snippet, and I'm going to give you this snippet. And I'm just sitting here like, if I took all these snippets and just was like, look what Fabian said, and that's all I said, I didn't say anything else. I was just like, look what Fabian said, and it was this one, like, it could come across pretty bad. Now, I'd hope
Right.
that if I put it out, someone would then go and look at the entire interview and be like, oh, well, they were just
He's making
screwing around.
jokes.
They were
Yeah.
just screwing around. It's like, yeah, we were screwing around. This is the questionnaire. It's kind of what we do. But
But there is somebody out there who's going to try to gin up their clicks for their website by taking it out of context, making it into a controversy, and then trying to put as much heat under it as they can until they've got their clicks for the day, and then they can go on to their next thing.
well, if they do that, they better give credit to the questionnaire. That's all I'm
That's
saying, because the content was created here. Beyond that, do it. I think it's funny. Hopefully, the people that view it are intelligent. No, man, I'm serious. Look, like if you don't have the intelligence level to look at something like that and know that things are put out in pieces for a reason, and like if it really affects you, like however it affects you, like just if it gives you feels in any way, you know what I mean, and you're not intelligent enough to be like, oh well, there's more of this. I should go listen to the entirety of it. I don't know, be more emotionally intelligent. I don't know what else to tell you, or just intelligent in general, because, yeah, it's very easy to take things out of context. Like, you could sit and read passages from the Bible, and oh my, yeah, imagine how out of context you could
The
just take a few
people
lines.
who take the dialogue from a villainous character in a novel and then attribute that to the author. That's the new thing that's sort of hopping around on the internet. And I'm like, why? Like, we all understand that a person can write a villainous character without believing that the villain is right. Like, it's a character, and if a villain says something bad or evil, that doesn't mean that the author believes that bad or evil thing. Like, that seems absurd to me. And so, people then putting together the little image with the picture of the author and then the quote and then their name under it. It's like they're doing that in bad faith. They're doing that to stir up some little hornet's nest. And it's like, are we talking about something else that's going to make us angry? Let's talk about something that makes us happy.
So wait, are you saying Jeff Lindsay is not thinking like Dexter?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly right.
That's no kind of fun, man. I always thought he thought like Dexter.
I mean, maybe he thinks like that but doesn't act on it, or maybe he, like, who knows, but he doesn't have to be that person to have written that. I don't have to be a Sasquatch to write this Sasquatch story. It's great.
Don't lie, man. I know you're wearing a mask.
Me trying to write a wordless sequence of how a Sasquatch learns to use a comb, one of the most fun writing exercises in my life. It's been really a good time.
Well, repeat that sentence again so my brain can fully process what you just said.
So the thing about this Sasquatch story is that I'm trying to write it with no words, which is a big deal for me because I'm a word guy. So I'm trying to write a wordless comic for this story. And I had to find a way for the Sasquatch to understand how a comb that he found works. And it was a really great writing exercise. Like, what is the Sasquatch's thinking process? Like, how does he, what's a thing that could tip him off as to what the comb does? And in the end, what I did was I had it happen where he was rooting through the dead hiker's backpack, and when he pulled his arm out, the comb was stuck in the fur of his arm. And when he pulled the comb out of his fur, he noticed that his fur was all very straight. And when he was looking at it, he thought back about the dead body of the hiker and the hiker's very straight beard and very straight hair. And then he looked back at his own arm again. And then we have him looking at his own reflection in the river and slowly combing his own beard.
And this is how he ends up purchasing things.
This is how he becomes Jeff.
And so he never speaks. How are you getting him to where he's in a city?
He
And
will, like, contextually in the story, the implication is going to be that he has learned to speak, but we're not going to have any dialogue from him in it, if that makes sense. I'm going to try to keep it dialogue free. At this point, the way I have it written, there are 3 words in the entire. No, there's also a sign. Okay, so there's 3 words of an email, and there is a sign for a campground, and those are the words. Oh, and the name Jeff on a driver's license. Those are the words that we're going to use.
you just didn't want to pay a letterer, huh?
Pardon me? I didn't want to pay a letterer. Yeah.
I see how it is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Maybe I did. I thought of all these funny wordless sequences, like the Sasquatch having figured out how to order something on the internet, and then the Sasquatch hiding behind the sign for the campground that's in the national forest that he lives in, and watching over the edge of the sign from the bushes for the truck to come. And when the truck comes and the guy walks in with the package and hands it to the manager of the campground, the Sasquatch comes in, and the Sasquatch is wearing a baseball cap that's obviously much too small, and a pair of big sunglasses, and a shirt that's not buttoned up right because he doesn't really understand it because he's a Sasquatch, and Y-front tighty-whitey underwear, no pants. And that's what he comes in wearing, and he points to the package, and the campground manager looks at him, and then the Sasquatch holds out a driver's license, the dead hiker's driver's license, that says Jeff. And the manager looks at the driver's license, looks at the Sasquatch, looks at the driver's license, looks at the Sasquatch, shrugs, pushes the package towards him.
I mean, I think I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to deal with this too. If I was that campground man,
That's exactly it, right?
like, no. But yeah, no, I just had to make the jest as far as the letterman. That truly would be a writing exercise as far as to do that with no dialogue, especially when you're including other characters, because I would assume there are so many places where you would want to put in dialogue with people reacting to this situation,
Yes.
And the lack of it makes it to where you have to make it to where it's done completely artistically and properly explained, which is a whole other challenge in and of itself. Just wanted to make your head hurt.
Why have I done this to myself? Why did I do it? Because I'm a masochist, I guess.
Look, at least you're not writing a Deadpool novel. From what I understand, that would be worse.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. Probably pays good money.
I mean, well, look, that's because I had Fabian on recently, and I was like, man, you dropped 2 novels, you're working on your 3rd. Wolverine and Deadpool's about to drop. Why not write a Deadpool novel? Like, I guarantee it would sell. And I literally said, I was like, I'm not guaranteeing you how many people would actually read the book. You know what I mean? But there are plenty, I guarantee there are plenty. Yeah, people would buy it just to have the book because of that. And it be that. But then he told a story of like, you know how difficult it is to write a Deadpool book without images, especially like you're saying like he in one chapter because he wants to tell you a recipe and just because it's got to be Deadpool. So he's like, no, dude, it made my head hurt. So apparently you decided to put yourself in the same situation. Fabian said, to hell with this, and threw it to the side. Man, have you gotten to a point in this story where you've really gotten frustrated with it?
No. I've had a couple of sequences that were challenging, but in them being challenging, it forced me to reevaluate the whole sequence and really dig deep and figure out what the purpose of the sequence was and what the emotion of the sequence was. Because if we can convey the emotion, we're fine. And I think that's I think the reason I want so much to work on this and the reason it's tickling my brain is that for almost 7 years, I've done a daily comic strip that is using words expressing empathy for emotions, right? And so the challenge of doing that, because this is a deeply empathetic story, but the challenge of doing it without words, which is how I would normally do it, I find absolutely thrilling. Like it's really tickling something deep inside of me, which is great. It's just so frustrating
that could be taken
while there's a
so
paycheck dangling for another project that I been wanting to do for 7 years, you know? So like, anyways.
I just didn't need the tickle deep inside you line, Aaron. That's all I'm gonna say
Okay, well, it's fine.
about
Edit it out
any
if you
of
need
that.
to.
Yeah, that was not necessary. I don't want to
Do you
know
want
what.
some alternate? Let me give you some alternates so you can edit them in. It touched something deep inside my body. It made my soul warm. I felt something, in my heart. One of those. Use one of those.
I'm not sure that any of those were any better, Aaron. If I'm gonna be honest.
I mean, so now you've learned how I deal with pushback. Uh, did you see the thing that I did on the internet with the corn dog? Okay, so I did a Kickstarter a while ago, and one of the rewards was if you bought a lot of copies of the book, I would show up in your book club. I'd do a Zoom call with your book club, and I did a whole lot of those. And some of them, I just kept going to the book clubs because I've been having a good time. And one of them, I was talking about, I had just done Fan Expo Philadelphia, and I had a really good time there, and I ate a lot of food at that Reading terminal. And somebody asked me what I had, and I said, oh, I had this really great fancy hot dog, and they asked me to describe it, and I described it, and then people started getting mad, and I was like, what's the matter? Like, no, when you roll the hot dog in something and fry it and put it on a stick, that's a corn dog. It's not a hot dog anymore. I was like, well, it's not a hot dog inside of it. It's a hot dog on a stick that's like being wrapped in something. It's just a fancy hot dog. We're like, no, it's a corn dog and it's different. So because the reaction was so violent, I made a t-shirt. That says "I heart hot dogs," and it has a drawing of a corn dog on it. And then just to deepen the troll, I was in New York for the Webby Awards, and I went to Central Park, and there was a vendor selling corn dogs, and so I got one, and there's a picture of me in Central Park wearing a New York Mets jersey, eating this. I've taken one bite off of the corn dog, and I captioned it, "In New York, having a New York hot dog." And people are so mad. But also, I sold like $1,000 worth of that stupid hot dog T-shirt. And that's how I earn a living, as a troll on the internet.
I just, man, like, look, I can only imagine how many people you upset with that shirt, right? Like, just,
Also, it comes in two colors, and one of them there's ketchup and mustard are the two colors. And I did at one point say that the ketchup shirt was for people from Chicago.
you can go to Chicago or New York or something and end up getting shot. And
Yeah.
this is all I'm saying. Like,
One of the comments on my picture in Central Park, one of the comments said, "Do you want to start a war?"
I mean, I hope at that moment you would live and learn. You know what I mean? Like, I hope the first gunshot you live and learn, and then you don't die. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's right.
Because,
Yep.
because,
Fair.
because, yeah, that could go very poorly, very, very, very quickly, man. You want a war? Yeah. Oh God, dude. Yeah. Uh, all right. We were getting into one other thing before we started, and you only said the name of it, and that's all I know, Aaron. But I'm intrigued, man, because I feel like just by the name of it, it could be interpreted a couple different ways. What is nano shark?
Oh, um, during the pandemic, I fell in with some guys who were making incredibly low budget movies that mostly end up on Tubi. And I am the executive producer of a new film called Nano Shark. The tagline is "You're going to need a smaller boat." And it is the story of a shark that gets shrunk down to microscopic size and injected into a man, and the team of scientists that have to go in after it.
So it's inner space with a shark.
With a shark, yes. From Brett Kelly, legendary director of Jurassic Shark and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Shark. And Galaxy Warriors, which I'm a producer on, which is a women in space prison movie, mostly shot in garages and gravel pits, but does have a stop motion animation monster at the end and no CG. It's kind of great. I really liked Galaxy Warriors.
I'm just stuck on Inner Space, but with a shark.
But with the shark. That's
To
right.
be real honest, like, because look, that's one of my mom's favorite movies. She always loved Inner Space. So like,
yeah, Inner Space is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good flick, man. I honestly haven't seen it in quite some time.
Holds up.
You know,
it really holds up. It's weirder than you remember.
I mean, it's Rick Moranis. I think pretty much yeah, I can't think of something. Oh yeah, and it's Martin Short too. Yeah, yeah, and I can't think of something from Rick Moranis though specifically that I look back at or that I've seen even recently and been like, yeah, that was not as good as I remembered. You know, like Honey Who Shrunk the Kids. I mean, they might have taken that one a little far, but I think they all hold their place. You know, even Blow
they were all
Kids,
good.
whatever.
I mean,
yeah.
he was in so few films, and he didn't make any bad decisions. I don't think he was in any garbage.
No, and then he was just like, you know what? I want to go be a dad. I'm out.
Yep. You know what? More power to him. People who can go make that decision. Like, if you get to a place where you are comfortable making that decision and financially comfortable making that decision, then why wouldn't you make that decision?
Well,
like that's.
He's still getting residual checks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had been employed by nobody in I don't know how freaking long.
He did. I almost tried to put together enough money to go to it because he and Dave Thomas did a one night only Mackenzie Brothers stage show at Second City in Toronto. That was a charity fundraiser, but the tickets were like $500 each. But I mean, they raised a ton of money for charity because who wouldn't go see that, right?
Yeah, I mean that's one of those acts like they've established themselves that if they just want to suddenly go and do something like that for sure, yeah, you're gonna make quite a bit. But I'm still stuck on Inner Space, but with a shark. like my brain is not gonna like. But I'm gonna have to go and check this flick out. I'm gonna be real honest because like I'm even gonna recommend it for mom. She's gonna be like, "What?" I'll be like, "Look, mom, it's Inner Space, but with a shark." And she's gonna be like,
and
"What are you talking
like
about?"
a much smaller budget.
I would assume because they had Rick Moranis and that was
this doesn't.
Are you like look, dude, you're getting too hype about it. Calm down. It's a love.
No, because I mean, here's the thing. I have a lot of trust in Brett as a director because he can keep things breezy. Like he keeps them going fast, and they don't give you time to be bored or annoyed or angry. And if something happens that you don't like in the film, guess what? Something's already happening else. Like it's he's good at constructing a very tight 70-minute plus credits film.
Well, fair enough, man. As long as you can keep it
That's a
moving,
skill.
I think
I
that's
mean,
something. Yeah, that's very important entertainment. But I do have to say, with the question of what comic book universe would you like to live in? Look, man, almost everyone has just chosen somewhere to die. That's all I know. That's
Well,
yeah. You all choose
yeah.
somewhere to die. There are safe places in comic book worlds, right? If you really think
Are
about it.
there? Because I couldn't think of any. Because I was like, I don't know, Gotham City, everybody gets murdered. You go down the wrong alleyway and you're dead.
Maybe it's only because I had Tony Fleece on right before he started doing a ton of other crap and suddenly wasn't near as well known for Care Bears as he was previously. But yeah, Care Bears, man. And then if you want to, or no, I mean My Little Pony. But then if you want to go, because Tony did My Little Pony. Sorry, but then there's also Care Bears.
I don't want to live in My Little Pony land. That's not for me. I mean, I might live in the Green Forest or like the Evergreen Forest from the Raccoons. That's a very Canadian reference right there. Oh, you know where I'd go? I'd go live in where Rocket Robin Hood lives, the space Sherwood Forest. That's what I'd go live there. That's pretty great.
That's a thing.
Yeah, Canadian television show from the 60s. Cartoon called Rocket Robin Hood, made by the same people who did 60s Spider-Man. The cartoon, you'll note it has all like the same voice cast. And it has, there are whole episodes of Spider-Man that are episodes of Rocket Robin Hood where they've just taken away the Robin Hood cells and put Spider-Man cells from other episodes. So he's facing the wrong direction or interacting in the wrong way. And it's just like to make a new episode out of things they already had lying around. It was very cheap. But it had a great theme song. They all fly around on their quarterstaffs. All have jets that come out of the bottom of them, and that's how they fly around in space. It's like, it's also one of the perfect titles. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean by a perfect title? It's a title that tells you what you are gonna get, and anything that comes into your mind is right. Rocket Robin Hood, like, it's telling you it's not like super futuristic. It's like retro futuristic because it's Rocket Robin Hood. You know, it's not Atomic Robin Hood. It's not Hyper Robin Hood. It's not Cyber Robin Hood. It's Rocket Robin Hood. It's like, do you know the movie Wolf Cop? Have you ever seen Wolf Cop?
No. Well, wait.
Guess what? It's about a cop who's a werewolf.
Yeah, actually, I think
Right.
wait. What is that, like early 80s?
No, it's very recent, but it feels like an 80s movie. It's great. The sequel is called Another Wolf Cop.
Whatever.
Great.
Look. All right. I'm trying personally to get through Godzilla X Kong right now, right? You know, and Alan Henry ain't here, but that is, right? And now it won't shut up. But you know, that's
But that's a perfect title. Yeah, Godzilla X Kong. That's a perfect title. It tells you what you're gonna get.
Yeah, them two teaming up against something. I mean, I agree, man. So it makes sense in that, man. But my brain drew a blank for a moment, Aaron. I hate when it does that. Like, sincerely, look. But it's been a pleasure, man. But I just, you made this a little more difficult than it typically is, right? And I mean the next part. Like, I don't mean like the actual quest. I don't know how to shut up or not ask questions. It's part of my problem, right? But for everyone out there, if you've made it this far, I hope you've enjoyed the interview and this particular quest where we've had Aaron Reynolds on, talking a number of things, right? If you have, what I want you to do is send him a Sasquatch, right? That found a cell phone apparently and somehow his address, right? To bring him a Saga Yojimbo? I ain't pronouncing that right at all, am I?
No, Usagi Yojimbo.
Saga
Oh,
Yojimbo.
yeah. Oh, this is the thing. This is the thing on my questionnaire that is the thing that I wish I still had. Yeah, it was the. Do you remember the Ninja Turtles toys from the
Yes.
late 80s? There was
the bunny.
Usagi showed up. The bunny. Yep.
It's terrible. Look, this is a Mike Roos back here, and I know Mike's done work on that. But yeah, so
It does. Mike's got a beautiful cover of it up on my wall.
Yeah. Mike wrecks things, man. It amazes me. Right? Yeah, but you can go check out Mike on the past show as well as he's coming up here in a little while. We're going to be doing things. But an action figure of the bunny, right? That's all I'm going to say because I'm going to butcher that name, right? And some sushi, right? That's what I want you to have this Sasquatch. Bring him, right? Now, if for some reason you didn't enjoy this quest, firstly, I don't know how you made it all the way to the end. I don't. If you hate watching, I guess that's what some of y'all do, and that's fine, right? But if you didn't enjoy this quest, and for some reason, man, just you got like you looking at Aaron like this is just so and so and rah and such. What I want you to do is I want you to send Dracula to his door to bite him, turn him into a vampire, then put him on just strap down to where he's just gonna be stuck for eternity to sit and watch Independence Day on repeat forever.
Sounds like hell.
I try, Aaron. I try, right? But besides that, for all y'all out there, right, I just want you to do three things. One, give it that thumbs up or equivalent comment. You know, all that good stuff, right? If you've enjoyed it, say something. I'll say something back. Maybe. I don't know. I'll try to. right? I'll say that much. 2, always get your comic on. Remember, there's a comic for everyone, and you can find them in plenty of different forms. But besides that, have a good night, y'all.
This has been the questionnaire.
Where's the link?
Thanks for checking out the questionnaire.
In the link below, yes?
I will drop it like it's hot.
That's another party.
It's cool, man. I love it.
The questionnaire. That is all.